So hello everyone and welcome to this webinar. This is the third webinar in the ITC Alliances for Action webinar series for the Caribbean region and specifically the coconut sector. So this was an initiative that we started in the current context of COVID-19 and looking at how to survive the COVID-19 crisis and also grow beyond it. This is an initiative funded by the European Union in partnership with the CARIFORUM Secretariat and the Organization of African, Caribbean and Pacific States. It's also an initiative that ITC Alliances for Action is doing in partnership with CARDI. So we'd like to thank our partner CARDI. And another one of our partners is JAMPRO. And Diane Edwards, president of JAMPRO, is here today and she'll be also doing a presentation. So thank you, Diane. And thank you all for tuning in today for this webinar, Change of Menu, Challenges and Opportunities for the Food Industry. So this is an exciting webinar. We'll be really looking at the food trends, both global and regional, specific to the Caribbean, with our regional speakers that we have on board. So just before we start, just a few housekeeping rules to make sure that the presentations go smoothly. If you can all make sure that you remain muted when you're not speaking. And of course, if you have any questions, just either raise your hand or you can write your question in the chat also. And that way we can address your question. So I'd like to start the webinar with our first presentation, Miss Cristina Reni, who's a consultant for the International Trade Center, working with Alliances for Action, and she's a food expert. So she'll be starting by presenting challenges and opportunities for the food industry. Hi, Cristina.
Hello, everyone. Hi, Sarah.
So before we start, we'd like to just, we'll have a quick poll, if you don't mind, just to get a bit of an idea of who's in the audience, and so you can all see what sector everyone is from. So, Cristina, if you can just share, oh great, you've shared it. So if you bear with me just a second. Can everyone see the poll? Cristina, can you see it?
Yes, I can see it.
Great. So if you don't mind just answering the poll. So I see we have 51 participants today. So we're really happy with the turnout for all these webinars. It's been really great. So we have 54% of votes. Okay. I think half the people have voted. I'll share the results. So we seem to have a big representation from the farmer producer sector, and the rest are more or less equal. We have a good representation of policymakers also. So that's great, it's a nice mix. Cristina, over to you.
Good. Thank you very much, Sarah, and thank you very much, everyone, for being here this morning on your side of the world. We're very happy that you join us for this conversation. This is how we intended to be. I'm going to be presenting, as Sarah mentioned, the global trends that we have seen, and then some opportunities to then leave the floor to Diane and Michelle that will be more specific to the region. So the first thing that I think most of us saw from the COVID-19 outbreak, it was this unexpected disruption of a growing sector. The food industry sector, as you can see here, also from some statistics in terms of retail sales equivalent, was on a growing path, not only in terms of sales, but also how it has permeate into our lives. Chefs, not only when we open books or when we see TV shows, but also how we connect with restaurants in our daily lives. So this is why COVID restrictions took place, was a big disruption to the main concept of restaurants and the food industry, that is gather people together around the same table and sharing. So this has created a different moment, pivotal moment for many. The first trend that I'm gonna mention is digitalization. The first answer that the food industry gave to the restrictions was trying to find other ways to connect with customers. So digitalization, and especially the delivery, was something that it was already sort of an ongoing trend, but not very fast. And this certainly accelerated because restaurants, in order to keep on business going and sometimes pay employees, had to transform their menus in order to be able to provide delivery service. So this means that many of the dishes that they were able to do, they had to be changed in order to be able to package it and also for these meals be able to travel. At the same time, the delivery service and the different models were very much floated by all the requests of new restaurants, but also existing delivery services that had much more demand from consumers. Another important element is that we have seen that in this graphic that I'm showing to you, there's, I would say, two different sort of service. There were two different sort of service providers in terms of delivery, no? So the software only, that means that the restaurant had this software. There's different brands. A very well known here in Europe, it's called Just Eat, for example. And you have the service of getting the orders from the clients, and then you as a restaurant provide the delivery service, so the transportation. While there's others that would focus only on deliver. The rider, as they call them, or the transportation person would arrive directly to the restaurant and the company would provide that service. What we have seen is that also in this sector, they have emerged and some of the ones that started as ordering service are doing delivery service, and some of the ones that were doing delivery service only are doing ordering service. The second, as I was mentioning, this was also, this accelerated some of the food, the trends within the food industry. The first one I would call ghost kitchen. For the ones of you that don't know it, a ghost kitchen, it's a kitchen, a restaurant kitchen, that it's not done for a front of a house service, but it's built on purpose on real estate that doesn't have this service facing structure, but only cooking, so only transformation in order to be able to be delivered. It's also a model that it was born to reduce cost and also being more efficient in terms of delivery. This specific trend grow and will probably keep growing within the next years. At the beginning, especially last year, there was some polemic about ghost kitchens in the United States because they were not seen as transparent, but right now it's something we're getting more used to it. The second one is meal kit services. Meal kit services have also arisen. There's many different companies depending on regions, and it's the fact that the customer orders a recipe, a dish, and all the ingredients arrive to the people's home or the delivery point, and we have the recipe and all the ingredients, and you have to follow those steps and you will come out with the dish. So the idea is to use and also learn more recipes, culinary skills within these services, and not having to think too much on what am I gonna cook for dinner. The third one in terms of digitalization that we have seen is how social media presence and websites are fundamental. As we're all close in our houses and had to stay here, the only way that many of us had to connect or had to see what products were available were online. So this leads us to e-commerce and how it has booming in different sectors, especially in the retail sector, where existing businesses and established brands were also overflooded of requests and were experiencing delay on the deliveries that they were doing, the service. Then the second one was food subscription boxes. This is another business model of retail, e-commerce retail, that is customers order once a month or once a week these food boxes that arrive with them. So it's not ready ingredients with recipes like the meal kits, but it's food boxes that come from the farmer usually, or have specific content connected to trends, like for example food recovery, and arrive to the consumer store. And then the third one that I find very, very curious, it was these unexpected new customers that were maybe older generations that started ordering food online. This was something that was not happening before and that the market didn't expect, because it was always very connected with young people that were accessing these tools. Within the lockdown and the restrictions, also older generations, older adults had to learn how to order online, and they have stuck into this. Another interesting thing is that also we have seen how the patterns of e-commerce has changed, because people are buying also fresh vegetables and fruits, while before it was more staples and dry goods. I'm gonna go to my second trend, that is diversification, cooking outside of the box. This is a list of a new business model template that I found and I wanted to share with you from a restaurant. So this is done by Bo Tan, who's a consultant, and created this business tool for different restaurants. And as you see, now we don't have only one or two voices that could have been customers in the restaurant to the takeaway meals. Here, now the restaurants need to have different options within their business model in order to be able to answer to what is happening. They have been taken out of their comfort zone, I would say, and through creativity, there's different ways that they have created new services. The other thing that we have seen is cooperation between chefs that have merged their restaurants in order to be able to answer to these different offers that I was mentioning, or doing, for example, takeaway meals together. So in order to create this stay connected with the customers and engage them, and create also new offers every day or every week, they have been starting to collaborate, while before there were not these such of collaborations. And then social responsibility. As you might have seen on the list before, we had meals for paid by charity. Many restaurants, even if we were in a very difficult time, they have understood their responsibility, their social responsibility within the community. And as I'm sure it has happened in many of your cities, the vulnerable population was the most hit as usual by the crisis. So a lot of restaurants have started not only to do their regular service or these new takeaway food meals, but also to prepare meals for the most vulnerable in their cities. Then the restaurants, I think that they're very creative. I think the food industry is very creative in general. So for them, keeping those brands alive were much more about how to create value addition within what they were doing. And I think that this is a very interesting overall lesson for different sectors to look at the food industry. Many of them not only, as I was mentioned before, adapted their menu into a packaging box, but also try to think about the experience of the customer. So we have seen also, for example, how different restaurants have their takeaway, the delivery service with different parts of the dish almost ready, and the customer receives it at home. You get the instructions and you assemble it. So you finish it, you can plate it, you can have that entertainment part. And at the same time, of course, creating content online, especially through social media. So videos explaining how you should assemblage that dish at your house, or also showing how the chefs are cooking at home with their own families. And that has been very important because while restaurants might be closed, the brand of those restaurants are still alive, and they're still speaking with the customer. The third one would be local sourcing and cooking at home. As you know, many food chains were disrupted during COVID. So maybe importations were shut down. For this, it was very important to focus in first, the starting point. We were all closed at home. It was a very stressful moment. So people address immediately to comfort food, what makes us feel good at home. The second one was focusing more in long preparations. We had time to be at home, something that before COVID, we didn't have that much time to engage in the kitchen. So we saw people starting to baking bread at home with sourdough, waiting the started to be fed and to grow. And also to invest in new appliances, new kitchen appliances, like bread making, but also toasters, fryers, air fryers. So investing more in the kitchen appliances. And then the third one, the search for entertainment at home. As I said, once that we pass that stage of comfort and we're home, we started to get bored, and we needed new recipes, new food, try new flavors at home. Other further changes, of course, the price and availability, as I was saying, was an ongoing driver. We were also worried about the economical situation that this has not only in our present, but also in our future. So people were connecting much more with local producers. Then restaurants refocusing the offer once they were able to open to local customers. A lot of restaurants that were focused on tourism had to shift how they were working on the offer, because they started to see that tourism right now, the borders, many of them are closed. For example, I'm based in Italy, and right now not a lot of tourists are able to come because they have to stay in quarantine 14 days. So not a lot of people are coming, even if they're still open. So all the restaurants had to refocus and think about local customers. And then pursuing new markets. That is not only local people, but maybe doing delivery service and takeaway to other cities close by. But still keeping that engagement with customers through social media. The fourth one would be sustainability. Sustainability was a big trend, even maybe the biggest before COVID came, and this will continue to be so, but just refocus onto health. We're all a bit more worried into how we can prevent getting sick, and also how we can invest more into our wealth, being health, in terms of mind, but also body. So safety and health would be the main drivers now. One trend that I think also in terms of coconut could be interesting, it's the idea that fermented foods still it's on the spot. I think that it was left on the side for a bit, but it's as is demonstrated that fermented foods are not only good for our guts but also for our mental well-being. This continues to be one point of interest. Then we have plant-based products, especially alternative meats, and I think this is a very big point also for coconut, as we have seen the coconut meat. And then human sustainability, another big lesson for the restaurant industry that we have seen is that many restaurants had unsustainable business models and were not able to pay from one week to another to their staff. And this has also within the industry made a lot of polemics, and have also shown who's who within the industry. So it's the idea that it's not only about good food, it's not only about good restaurants, but it's about healthy food, affordable prices, and what is locally available. This would be the main point on how sustainability is translated now. And here I arrive to the main point of this presentation, that it would be like, what are the opportunities that these four trends that I mentioned have for food producers and exporters. I know that, again, Diane will speak very much about coconut specifically, but I have some ideas and suggestions on this subject. So we will have less restaurants and less cover, for sure. A lot of restaurants are going to go on bankrupt and not able to open back again. And when they're able to open again, they will have less covers, less people because of social distancing, less covers. So cooking at home will remain as our main connection with food, and even with the hospitality industry. So customers are going to be able to invest, or are going to be wanting to invest more in health, sustainability, and entertainment. And here a big trend is ethical living. So the choices that we will make as customers will be very much answering to what is ethical in my life, in this scenario of we're at home. This is for us an opportunity for producers to address directly those customers and create ways of that customer engagement without forgetting that there's a digitalization of everyone, of different sort of customers. So even the over 60 ordering online, it's something that we cannot forget how we're connecting and engaging with those customers. The second one is this strong connection with local producers, and it's a big opportunity because we are in this sense that everything is very uncertain, but we know that the food chain disruptions were an answer on how unsustainable our food system is. So a lot of customers will like to rely less in import and stay connected at the same time with global trends, but thinking about their local producers. There's a huge movement on this. Then product alone will not last, and this is a big important thing. It's not only about having the food coming out of our doors. All these different initiatives that have been mentioned, delivery, food boxes, they all come with not only a narrative, but also they build an experience and create deeper personal connections. So here I have three big points. The first one is using culture as a key value to be added. we cannot forget that food is not only something that we take to our mouths and in terms of calorie, but it also has a cultural value that I think that in these moments in which we're all very much aware about social sensibilities and many things going around the world, culture is something very important that connects us with the food and also with our community. So this is a very important element. Personalization. So until now we have seen this more like in artificial intelligence and how to create, I would say, new flavors profiles, but it's also about how producers can understand their customers using data and designing a specific offers for them that will keep them engaged, that will keep that conversation going. And then the digital content. If I'm here at my house and I can see, for example, a video of something that is happening around the world but really touches me, and it's not only something else I'm seeing in my cell phone, but it really answers to the value of food and that culture that I was mentioned before, I'm gonna be much more open to be engaged. Here I have presented to you two examples about what I've been mentioning. It's two pastry chefs. One is from Spain called Ant Inc. She's a young pastry chef awarded with many prizes here in Europe. And just before COVID, she created this subscription. And it's this box that you receive at your house once a month. Or you can just buy the single one, but the idea is that once a month, she sends you some pastries. So cookies or jams, as you have seen there, or snacks. Directly from her kitchen to your home. And then the second one, it's a very well-known pastry chef from the US, Cristina, that she started her own chain of pastry shops called Milk. And she's also very well-known because she's been on a Netflix show, but she hasn't stopped there. She also created care packages, and that's how she calls it. And here's my point of attention with what I was saying before. It's not only food that arrives to your house, it's not only a cake, it's care from the chef, from the pastry chef to the consumer. Other pivotal points from the food industry is that chefs have understood the importance of producers and suppliers, and many of them have put them in the center right now. So from connected with the business model that I said before, many of them have started to sell products from producers and farmers from their restaurants. And this is something that we have seen from Argentina to the UK, here in Italy. So I don't go to the restaurant anymore only to buy the ready meal. I go there also to buy the food from the producer, the food from the farmer, the raw ingredient. There's also circular economy and the idea that with all this crisis, we don't have anything to waste. It's a trend that it was, I think, put on the second place by the emergency, but right now will come back into the business model. A big point here that I have for everyone is that this is a moment to create alliances between chefs and producers. Chefs as you have seen over my presentation, are innovating, are having new ideas, are reaching out to customers in different ways. So producers can, one, take lessons from what they have been doing, right, and engaging with customers in creative ways, but also connecting with those chefs that are developing other further activities to create new products. So I have also some of examples here. I apologize. This is one example that I have from Ferran Adrià. It's called the father of gastronomy, molecular cuisine, a chef from Spain. Many years ago, not many years ago, but over 5 years ago, Fernandez started this beer with Strejada. And right now they have shifted this beer that was first exclusive, no? You can see the bottle, the wine, the glass bottle there, the confection, into very much beer that can also be bought at the supermarket. So now we're speaking that these collaborations are not only for niche markets. This is an opportunity to go to food retail, to go to other consumers and markets. So in line with this example, I have 3 other examples that I wanted to share with you because they're connected with food trends. One is Wicked. This is a project in Tesco, a UK supermarket, that created a collaboration of ready meals with chef Derek Sarno, especially plant-based. So the idea is vegan, again, ethical living. The second one, it's a group of Basque, so Spain, in the north of Spain, chefs that have created their own line of kombucha, so fermented drink, using always local producers. So the idea is that terroir meets the technique. So always the local that meets the skills for creating a new project and product that answers to a trend. And then the third one is the zero waste kitchen from Lidl. This is an example from Switzerland with a chef called Reni Schnudel. Also created a different sort of products for the supermarket and a campaign around fighting food waste at home. And other 2 that I wanted to share is how, for example, the Mexican restaurant Pujol, the most important, I would say, restaurant or famous restaurant in Mexico, created a food box delivery service for their clients that they also show on their Instagram page. So weekly food boxes that come from the producers. And then the last one is this virtual banquet. I love this idea because this is quite of a mix. You have collaboration, 3 chefs. You have this idea of delivery because it's meal that is going to be delivered at home. You have collaboration with Belasu. Belasu, it's a UK brand of products. I don't know if you know it. It's they have collaborations with chefs. So it's chefs, delivery, collaboration between chefs, also with the private sector because they have Belasu. And then the 4th one is that all the revenues are gonna be going to chefs in school programs, so a charity program, and all the fees is vegetarian. So here you have 6 trends all together at the same time when speaking about collaboration. So that would be my last example. Thank you very much for all your attention. I think that we're ready for our next poll, where I would like to ask you, what from the presentation I have given, have you seen also in your community change?
Thank you, Cristina. So I'm just going to launch the poll now, if everyone can vote. So what trends are you seeing take off in your community? Local sourcing of food, which would normally be imported, baking bread at home, e-commerce, healthy foods, takeaway restaurant, zero waste, ghost kitchens, fermentation, and comfort food. I'm quite interested to see the results for this one, actually.
Me too.
So we have around 50% of votes. Just leave it up a little bit longer. So I'll share the results of the poll here. Maybe if you want to say a few words on the results, Cristina, And if anyone has any questions for Cristina specific to her presentation, we can have a quick question and answer, like no more than 5 minutes before we move on to the next presentation.
Thank you, Sarah.
So,
Also very curious about the trends. So we can see here that the most popular one is takeaway restaurants. The second one would be local sourcing of food, which normally would be imported. This is also, I think, very inspiring.
yeah.
Then baking bread at home. Baking bread at home. This is something that we have seen very big now on social media, but also I think connects a lot with spending more time at home. E-commerce. Those are very interesting trends. And the ones that are less, it's ghost kitchens, fermentation. I also think fermentation is very, sometimes it's very connected with cultural things. So maybe more the north part of Europe has much more tradition on this. Northern hemispheres for sure. And then healthy foods. It's kind of on the middle, but it has also bigger percentages than comfort food. And this is surprising also for me, that people have seen more healthy foods than comfort foods.
Yeah.
I think it's in as an overall analysis, I think our audience is quite healthy.
Yeah. And the first one is interesting about the local sourcing of food, which would normally be imported. It links up quite well actually with our previous webinar for those who attended. You know, with one of the big problems that the Caribbean region has been faced with now with COVID is the disruptions in import. But you know, there's always a silver lining for every issue, and this is an opportunity to build or rebuild the local or regional food chain. So there is some positive some positive outcome there.
Definitely.
Great. So if anyone has any questions for Cristina, you can either raise your hand or let us know in the chat, or you can even just write your question in the chat and we can address it later at the end of the webinar. I don't see any questions. So Cristina, if you can unshare the presentation. Thank you. Thank you for the presentation. For those of you who've just joined us, welcome. We've still got 2 more presentations coming up. One is from Diane Edwards, president of JAMPRO. The other one is Michelle Rousseau, chef and entrepreneur from Jamaica. So stick around for that. So our next presentation, let me just share it. Bear with me. Will be from Diane Edwards, president of JAMPRO. JAMPRO is our Alliances for Action trade and investment partner organization from Jamaica. So thank you very much for supporting us in this webinar and participating. Diane, over to you. I'm going to share your presentation just now. Share screen.
So while she's bringing it up, I can just say thanks very much, Sarah, for hosting this webinar and for inviting me on. Thanks to ITC, CARDI, and the EU for funding and implementing the coconut industry development project for the Caribbean, because I think it's really important to revitalize the coconut industry. We think it's an industry that has a great future, but has suffered from a number of supply side issues. So we're very glad to see that there is now a strong focus on sustainability, productivity, and value-added products. And that's kind of why I call this the new world of coconut, because the pun is very much intended. This is so-called new world. But coconut has been with us for a very long time, since the 1500s, but we haven't really in the Caribbean embraced the new world of coconut, which is where the consumer trends are going that Cristina was talking about. And I think that what is really important and exciting is that there is a whole new world of coconut out there, which we need to start embracing as farmers, as producers, as restaurateurs, as processed food manufacturers, and as companies that import on the other side and get close to the consumer. So it's really a whole value chain that we need to work on. So what I'm going to talk about today, if we can look at the outline, is just very briefly, coconuts in Caribbean cuisine, some of the, really quickly over the new consumer trends, because I think Cristina talked a lot about that. And then some of the innovations that we're seeing out there in the market. And I'm glad to see that there's so many producers and policymakers online who can really do something with the information that I'm talking about. And then I wanted to just share a personal case study about a product called Cocoa Canoe, which is a coconut rum product, because I think it's relevant to the entire Caribbean, the opportunity that we see in a variety of products. But because I was personally involved with this one, I wanted to share that story. And then just some thoughts on the future world of coconut. So coconuts in Caribbean cuisine, first of all, and I'm not going to dwell long on this because we have a great restaurateur who is actually a huge innovator in the form of Michelle Rousseau, who's going to come up after, and she's going to talk much more about that. But essentially, coconuts have been a Caribbean staple for a very long time, as I said, since the 1500s. So we go from sweet to savory and everywhere in between. We go from using coconut in curry shrimp, in mackerel rundown, which is a very Jamaican staple. In rice and peas, we cook rice and peas with coconut milk, as a lot of people will know. Not everybody does that because a lot of the other peoples around the Caribbean who cook rice and peas don't necessarily use coconut milk, but we do. Saltfish and coconut dumpling. These are just selections of Caribbean foods which have coconut ingredients, coconut drops. There's gizzada, there's a whole lot of coconut ice cream, there's a lot of coconut desserts as well. So really, we have a lot of traditional uses of coconut, but are we really potentializing those? Sorry, Cristina, yeah. Can we go on to the next one after this, please? Sarah, next slide. Yeah, but are we really looking at the potential for value added for our coconut products? And I would argue that we're not. We are actually in the Caribbean, one of the lowest countries and regions in the world in terms of R&D. In the entire Latin America, only Brazil spends more than 1% of its GDP on R&D. And research and development is absolutely critical for what we need to be doing with our coconut products. We are consuming coconut water, coconut oil, and then we have a few sauces that I'm showing there. So Walker's Wood has a really fine coconut rundown sauce. You know, there are other coconut infused products, but most of this is really geared to the ethnic market. I think Walker's Wood would be one of the exceptions to that. The packaging is very Caribbean, it's very strong, it's very hot and spicy and suggestive of that. And I think that we really need to be looking at products that appeal more to a crossover market. If you look at the next slide, we are really looking at what the metropolitan countries are doing with coconut. And it's actually quite exciting, some of the options there. If you look at the positioning of these products, and this is why I particularly put the Caribbean coconut curry from on the right-hand side in the middle from Levi Roots, because Levi Roots range is saying Caribbean, he's saying it's Caribbean coconut curry, but it's very much a crossover product that is focused on the mainstream market. but he's trying to really push the Caribbean roots. And what I say there, Caribbean, between inverted commas, is a sort of stereotyped Caribbean. And that's what he is promoting. If you look at some of the other products on this slide, like the Robert Rothschild product, which is on the far left, which is pineapple, coconut, mango, and tequila sauce, you start to see some of the innovations that people are putting out there. Tequila is not a Caribbean product unless you call Mexico Caribbean. So the opportunity really is there to do a lot more with coconut, to infuse it with new flavors, and to really start to position Caribbean value-added products in the mainstream market and in the gourmet market. So if you look at what a lot of these products made in the metropolitan markets have in common, the packaging is very sophisticated. They talk about Caribbean style, and they're actually doing a lot better than we are in promoting Caribbean style. And we're allowing them to define what Caribbean style is because we are not defining it. I particularly put up there the description of the Caribbeano simmering sauce. Please note the words. This is the bottom right-hand corner. And the way he describes the sauce, coconut citrus candy sauce, spiced rum, citrus, and coconut milk. This sauce brings you back to the islands. The sweet and citrus combination will make your mouth explode with flavor. And that's the kind of positioning and the opportunity that we have that we're not seizing. Chili in the Valley, at the top right-hand corner, is actually a product out of Wales, which has absolutely nothing to do with the Caribbean, or it's really not close. And its subtitle is Calypso. So again, they're using these Caribbean cues, which we are not using. They are using our history and culture to promote some of these products, which are very exciting products on the market. And what is great about coconut is that everyone loves coconut. So it's a great opportunity for us. So next slide, if we look at some of the consumer trends very quickly, and if you just look at these two products there, they are examples of innovation. So from card holders to coconut bowls, which are actually the hollowed out coconut husks. So looking very quickly at the market trends, the next slide just shows you two graphs. And I think Cristina has done a good job of talking about the market trends. So I won't go into this very much, but what is important is that this is a projection from 2015 to 2025 on the left-hand side. And two things are important about this slide. One is the curve that this is going up by, and this is a really nice curve showing increase in coconut products. And they go from coconut oil to coconut water and powder to coconut milk or cream, and then other coconut products. So that's the slide, the graph on the left. And that's really showing a very nice increased consumer demand in the billions with a B of US dollars. So I think that just points to the fact that even though there is a strong market out there, the market is increasing. The one on the right-hand side is really talking about cosmetic oils. So again, you see a nice increase in the curve. So it's talking about coconut oil as in comparison to almond oil and olive oil. Coconut oil is the light blue in the middle. So again, you see a nice increase in that curve. And if we go to the next slide, this is really just looking at some post-COVID consumer trends from Euromonitor. Healthy living is the one we need to emphasize because coconut very much fits into that. Experiential, the desire of young people, particularly millennials, Generation Z, and the future generation, to have more experience in life and therefore more of that diversification, but authenticity and shifting market frontiers. That's really critical because consumers want to embrace new experiences and to be transported into new worlds. Connected consumers, these are the things where we feel that coconut can tap into. So connected, what Cristina was talking about, connected with the farmers, connected with the producers through fair trade, through organic. These are very strong marketing cues that we are not really potentializing in the Caribbean. So to look at the next slide, just to put it into some figures, you see there that the global coconut products, and that's all the products, different products made from coconut, was valued at 11.5 billion in 2018 and is expected to reach 31.1 billion by 2026, with a compound average growth rate of 13.6%. So I think that really states the case, and I don't think we need to go anymore. It's a growing market, it's exciting, and look at the coconut water segment of that, which is looking at a CAGR of 23.8%. So it's really huge. The opportunity is there. Slower pace for consumers, increasing demand for comfort foods. Cristina touched on that. So big products out of coconut, and we are seeing in Jamaica in our exports a real opportunity for big products to grow. Teas, we are seeing huge demand and increase for teas. I don't know if you have all heard that with COVID, the more hot liquids you drink, the better it is for you. So teas have seen a big spike in demand. Pies is not something we're doing all that much of, but we could be. And then I think the opportunity also, which we are seeing now in Jamaica, that people are going less for street food culture, they're cooking more at home. So more opportunity for processed foods, ready meals, all those packages that we spoke about, healthy eating. Those are trends that we can tap into. Obviously, next slide, the coconut water is the star of the products category, but there are a lot of coconut waters out there. And I think what is really important is that at least we have one company that is tapping into the coconut water craze, which was popularized by Rihanna and Madonna, but their coconut water, Grace coconut water, comes out of Thailand. So that is showing us that we are really not tapping into the real demand that even a local company, even a Jamaican-owned company has tapped into, and they're importing their coconut water from Thailand. I think that speaks volumes. What Vita Coco has been doing, and they are the market leader with 44% market share by volume in the US, which is extraordinary. And they have done a lot of product line extension with flavors like pineapple, lemonade, peach, mango, and orange. So this is where we could be going. As I say in this slide, the coconut products category is really on fire. Oils, milk, snacks, coffee. Coconut coffee is out there. That's the second from the left in the top row. Coconut rum, coconut beach snacks. So coconut yogurt. There is a huge range of uses of coconut in products. So there's Boulder Canyon has a coconut oil kettle cooked potato chips cooked in coconut oil, gluten-free, non-GMO, low in sodium with only 3 ingredients. This is where the innovation really needs to explode in the Caribbean. And when we are producing enough, because this is really the problem, we're not producing enough and we're not innovating enough. So that's why I wanted to share with you Cocoa Canoe, next slide, which really is just something that I was personally involved in when I was running Rare Nephew UK. And Rare Nephew, in case, I guess everyone in the Caribbean knows what Rare Nephew is, but they're our premier alcohol company, which primarily produces Appleton Estate rum and Rare Nephew White Overproof rum. But the whole point is that in the 2010s, around that time, there were very few coconut rums on the market. Next slide. If you look at the market in those days, it was really dominated by Bacardi, Captain Morgan, and there was one coconut rum out there on the market, which was called itself a rum, Malibu, but actually at 21% alcohol by volume is technically a liqueur, not a rum. So Coco Canoe was actually 37.5%, and that allows it to be technically considered a rum. So we had at that time in Wray and Nephew 2 coconut products, Coco Mania and Coco Canoe. Well, we couldn't market Coco Mania because we couldn't market a product called Mania in the UK at the time, and it's still like that because we were signed up to a code of conduct, which meant we couldn't be associating alcohol with mania, with getting your head totally up. So we needed to look at how could we compete with a huge market leader, Malibu, with huge marketing budgets. Coco Canoe, we had a sleeper product because bartenders love the liquid but were embarrassed by the packaging. The packaging was really not up to scratch. And if you look at it in more detail, next page, next slide, you can see that the packaging was really what I call retro 60s kitsch. It was really sort of cliche Caribbean. It was not attractive. It just didn't say anything about coconut and about the product at all. So what we did was actually to get an art student, paid £500 to redesign the label. And the reason why we did that was because Kingston decided there was no opportunity for a coconut rum against Malibu. So they said, do what you want with it. We're not interested. We're going to do Coco Mania because that works in the Caribbean. So what we did was get a bottle off the shelf. We redesigned the label and we repositioned the product as the real coconut rum. And if you look at the next slide, you see some of the things we did real quick, which was to get the consumers, get close to the consumers, reposition Coco Canoe as a coconut ingredient if you wanted real coconut and real rum flavor in your cocktails, like a coco colada, which was obviously a pina colada made with coconut rum. We did a lot of cocktail competitions. We did recipe ideas. We did giveaways. We really appealed to the females who liked the sweeter flavor of the coconut rum. And we actually got very strong results out of this program, which really started off with £500. So sales doubled for us in a year. The bartenders loved it and they started to put it on the front bar instead of the back bar. We got a listing with Sainsbury's Supermarket. That was the first one to list the product. It's everywhere now. And finally, JWN, Jerry and Nephew Jamaica, started to take the product seriously. And now Campari has launched a new packaging, which you see there. So Coco Canoe is now all grown up and it's a real product. So what's the way forward that we see for our innovative coconut products? We think we really have to do more spending on R&D, develop more new and innovative products. We think that we have to improve the management of the supply side because we've got to increase production. We can't keep allowing Grace to import coconut water from Thailand. We need to increase the focus on the value chain in agriculture. So the farmers need to get closer to the producers in the value chain, need to get closer to the processors, need to join together to develop products in sync with each other. And we need to go after high quality niche products because we're not massive like Brazil. So we need to go after those niches that will deliver high quality and also fair trade opportunities to our farmers. We need to improve our protection of IP, our intellectual property, because as I said, in the metropolitan markets, Caribbean style is a great concept, but we don't own it. So we need to create consumer brands. And this is not just for the big guys, the small guys can actually create consumer brands. Tortuga rum cake, of which there's a coconut version, actually was created by a couple in Cayman, okay, subsequently bought by Jamaica producers, but the point is they took it to a point where they could take it, and with e-commerce, now it is possible for SMEs to do, to really conquer international global markets, and then work with our sister agencies in the Caribbean. JAMPRO has sister agencies. There are 23 territories in the Caribbean Association of Investment Promotion Agencies. So we have a product which we have not loved and cherished enough. The product has sustainability, it has growing demand, it fits with the Caribbean brand. We really think there is a lot of future with coconut. So with that, I want to say thank you for listening, and any questions? I think Sarah will allow us questions for maybe 4 or 5 minutes. So thanks for listening, and really open to collaborations, questions, and anything you want to know. Thank you.
Thank you, Diane. That was really inspiring, actually. I loved the story about Coco Canu. It was really shows how the power of marketing, and also how infusing the products with the Caribbean culture can be a competitive asset. I think that's really important. So are there any questions from the audience for Diane?
Not a question, but a comment.
Yes.
Hi, Dan. Excellent presentation. I wanted to take you up on the issue of lack of funding for R&D, which I fully agree with you is a major constraint for the region. And we at the Caribbean Agribusiness Association has been advocating for a policy position for the region to levy a small fee on imports in the region of 0.5 to 1% to support R&D. I think CAIPA could play a critical role in aggressively promoting that. We have been getting a bit of pushback from some of the countries in that they feel the ministries of finance may be reluctant to support this, what they see as the tax. But much of what we are advocating in terms of new product development will go nowhere if we don't invest in these new technologies and new product development strategies. So I'm just suggesting that maybe through CAIPA, we can take a more proactive, a more formal approach, perhaps by writing to or individual ministries, perhaps in this case, Ministry of Agriculture and Trade, with a mechanism that allows us to pursue this. Because without that, both at the primary level and the value-added level, we will not make much progress. Thanks.
I fully agree with you. I think that was Vasu speaking. Yes?
Yes,
yeah, I fully agree with you. I think it's something we need to do at a Caribbean level. At the Jamaican level, we have the Scientific Research Council, which does a lot of work on this, as you know. And they actually go as far as to formulate products, which then SMEs can actually buy these formulations and produce from them. I think we need to do this on a Caribbean level. CARDI, I think, needs to be involved. And I think we need to lobby on a Caribbean level. So that means that we need to tell all those who go to COTED meetings and the ministers of agriculture of the region that this is the kind of thing that we need to do more of, because we're not capitalizing on the Caribbean brand in the international market. And that's fundamental. We are allowing other people to take that style and that culture and that positioning away from us. So I think we need to get more organized. So if you want to drop me a line, please feel free to do that, and we will talk about it in CAIPA. So thanks for that suggestion.
Certainly, will do.
We have Keith raising his hand. Keith, do you have a question? Keith Worrell, do you have a question? Maybe it was
Maybe it was a mistake.
Yeah. Okay, great. Does if there are no more questions, just wait. We have another poll for everyone before we move on to the next presentation. So first of all, I'd like to thank Diane. Thank you very much for the inspiring presentation. I hope it's got everyone energized and ready to take on the market. So the next poll is about changes in food consumption Let me just put it up on the screen. So since COVID-19, what are your main priorities when it relates to your food consumption? If you can just choose maximum 2 replies, please. So is it flavor, taste, comfort, health, sustainability, safety, or price? I'm just sharing the... So it's nearly done. So our next presenter is going to be Michelle Rousseau. I'll already introduce her while I'm waiting for the poll to finish. So Michelle Rousseau was kind enough to participate in this webinar. She's a chef, book author, TV host, and entrepreneur. I'm sure some of you have heard of her. She's a chef at the Summer House restaurant in Kingston, Jamaica. And she'll be sharing her views and experiences related to food in the Caribbean region, and also specifically on coconut. So let me just share the poll results. Cristina, I don't know if you want to, if you have any comments on the results. Again, it looks like health trumps all the options. So again, the Caribbean is really health oriented. And food safety, also a big one, sustainability. And then I guess flavor and taste and comfort come last. So probably if you're looking at the domestic market, your best bet is to aim for a healthy product. Cristina?
I'm here, can you hear me?
Yeah.
No. I'm very surprised about that comfort is being the last one of the list, because that's very different from other trends we have seen. But at the same time, also connected with what Diane was speaking, I think that flavor and taste are so key for the Caribbean region.
Yeah.
So that one is very, and also that safety is there. I think that it's very much in line with what we've been speaking before, and also the challenges that for the producers and growers, but also for chefs like Michelle, are gonna come. So that I think is an opportunity for transparency. I think that restaurants are gonna be like, or food businesses that are gonna be more transparent about how they create safety environments or safety products, are also going to have a better opportunity to succeed. Yeah. So I'm going to leave you with the Michelle. Thank you, Michelle, for joining us today. We're very happy to have you.
It's my pleasure. So everybody, welcome, and thank you so much for having me. It's really an honor to be here. I think it's been an interesting time in the hospitality industry. In this context, I'm going to specifically speak a little bit more to the restaurant industry, although, you know, we fit within the larger global sort of context of hospitality overall. And I think that's an extension that reaches very, very far and has long tentacles that touch many other industries in the Caribbean. Not to mention the least of which being the farming industry. One second. Excuse me, do you mind giving me a minute? Yeah, sorry. Okay. So, so essentially, I think my presentation is a little bit different, and I'm not going to play it with any flow that necessarily follows how I'm speaking, but I do think that there are some visuals here that are important, and I think help to translate a little bit of what I'm speaking of. Obviously, the obvious outcome in COVID times in the restaurant industry has been glaringly evident. You know, I think Cristina spoke a bit to it in the beginning, but you know, widespread closure of restaurants all over the world. There's not one single restaurant owner that I have spoken to that is open, and many of whom will not be able to reopen. Hotels are closed, airlines suspended, travel suspended. You know, I think this is something that is unprecedented and was actually, up till this point, I would say probably unfathomable for a lot of us in the hospitality industry. You know, we remember a time when restaurants looked like this, and you know, there was buzz and there was energy and there was vibe and so on. And before I really, you know, delve deeper into that, you know, my sister and I, I'm a 50% owner of a food industry business that is, we don't consider ourselves chefs, and I would not to discredit that, but I would say that we see ourselves as food entrepreneurs, and we have worked in multiple aspects of the food industry. We've been caterers, we've been consultants, we've been restaurateurs, we have worked on, you know, on consulting projects with organizations like World Bank, etc. And I think there is an underlying commonality across all of these industries that has been severely impacted due to COVID. And so you have your obvious socioeconomic impact. You know, in the post-COVID era, restaurants are empty. You know, a restaurant that could have seated 75 people now has to have a capacity of 18. So outside of, you know, based on your space, for instance, outside of the obvious economic impact that will have and the need to restructure your business model to service and serve something in a way that is profitable, there's also the less obvious outcome of the industry. And I think this is, to me, where the future and the focus of the future lies. The most unexpected thing coming out of this time, I think, has been the reveal of the glaring level of imbalance in our industry, not just from a multinational restaurant to a local small enterprise, but you know, the macro versus the micro. You're also seeing, you know, a deep reveal of the existing racial and cultural biases and inequalities in the systems, the global restaurant systems around the world. So I think you have found, and you can see this, that there's systemic racism that's ingrained across the entire industry. You know, we see that in a very tangible way in something like the cruise ship industry in the Caribbean here. You know, how Caribbean workers are treated on ships and versus how other people are. We also see it in mainstream media representation, storytelling. You know, what stories get the covers of magazines, traditional and mainstream magazines. What is the narrative of the storytelling, and how are you represented in the media? You know, what is the standard of what is good versus what's not considered good? The last year at the James Beard Awards, you had the most African-American winners ever. And I think this is the first time in the history of the food industry that you're seeing, you know, an Eduardo Jordan and a Chef JJ and a Nina Compton, and then you're seeing Mashama Bailey from The Gray in the Savannah. You know, these people were for many years told that their food and the way they cook their food was not good enough. And so in order to make it in the mainstream, you know, you can be a little bit ethnic, but just not too much. You can be authentic, but don't push the boundaries to offend anybody, you know, or make anybody uncomfortable. You know, you in some way were sort of told that you had to diminish your personal experience so that it fit into this accepted standard of good, and this accepted standard that has been established by some unknown authority. So who is that authority, and how are they, you know, able to judge us based on what it is that we produce outside of what the market wants? And I think this reveal of the inherent bigotry surrounding sort of ethnic and minority expressions of food and culture is going to be an underlying theme moving forward in the industry. And there is change happening, and there's a forced change, and we have to shift. Last night, this is just very recent news, last night at around 10 p.m., the editor-in-chief of Bon Appetit magazine, Adam Rappaport, resigned. And he resigned because it was revealed that there was unequal pay for colored journalists or people of color who were writing for the magazine, but also, or not writing, but I think doing posts, but also, you know, based on some other stuff that he had done that was perceived as inherently racist. So I think that, you know, the sort of putting this industry in that context, you know, the race riots and everything that's happened has resulted in something very tangible in the industry that I've never seen before. And I think you're seeing a widespread promotion and recognition of community and Black-owned and ethnic businesses globally. So you're seeing mainstream media, you know, speaking about ethnic food businesses, products, brands, stories, cookbook writers, bloggers. You know, they're sharing cookbooks, they're sharing, you know, information and access and tagging people. And I think this is not, you know, this level of representation has never been seen before. So this represents an opportunity for the Caribbean, because this is our market. We are an ethnic market. And these are our foods, and this is our story in many ways. But at the end of the day, it also represents an opportunity for us to examine the imbalances and the inequalities in our own systems. And I think, you know, this is a growing wave, and it's not going anywhere. And if in order to move forward, it is essential for us to really look at and take into account the changing face of the industry and what we will need to do in this business and in this industry to remain relevant. And I think the biggest question moving into the future for the food industry, and I'll speak from the perspective of a restaurant, because this is my specific business right now, is the question of relevance. And I think this is if you take this as a lens, you can apply it to any context and to any business in any industry. But I think that for the most part, you know, you have to ask yourself, moving into what is, I consider to be a completely new reality, is your product or your business relevant and ready for the new reality? It's not just enough to pivot, because when you pivot, you risk repeating cycles of the past, which may no longer be relevant for the future. This is a completely new time, a completely new reality. So we really are forced to reinvent. And for me, that may be looking at, you know, what does my business model look like? How do I need to change it? But moving forward, I think for everybody in the food industry, everything has to change, because how we consume is going to change. So it's what we eat, it's where we eat, it's how we eat, who we eat with, how the food is made, how is it prepared, you know, where is it coming from? And if you make the question of relevance a lens through viewing all aspects of your business, I think you can determine what relevance looks like specifically for you, because this is not a sort of a common answer. I think there's a common issue in the industry. I said, but we have to individualize the experience down to your individual business, because, you know, we all have different priorities and different heritage and legacy and history, in not just personal legacy and history, but your business's legacy and history. So to retain relevance, I think you need to evaluate 5 main areas, and this is what we have done as an organization. Moving forward, there are 5 main aspects of your business and the industry that you need to assess. And, you know, when looking at this through a lens of relevance, you sort of be very easily reveals to you whether you need to restructure, whether you need to allow some things to die, whether you need to take the opportunity to really do, which is what we have done in this time, the hard work, make the uncomfortable decisions. You know, what do you need to call? What do you need to change? What systemic, you know, challenges do you have? Where do things not work? But the first lens through which I look at is, you know, what are people going to be looking for post-COVID? And, you know, that question leads to, is how you work on what you produce relevant to the need and to that need? And, you know, I'm just rolling through some pictures here just for you to get a visual. So it's not really related to what I'm speaking of. But, you know, the first question is, I think that, you know, you have to realize that what are people going to want after this time? I think one of the first things people want is that they want comfort. For us on our side of the business, that translates to bespoke experiences. So how do you reach out and make your customer feel loved and needed and wanted? They want to be made to feel special. You know, so intimate experiences after so much time in isolation, you know, people want to reconnect and they really want to feel the power of community and of social engagement, but they want that with a reassurance of safety. So, you know, what are the relevant standards and protocols of your experience? Can you provide that? People want to know that they can have an experience and do something that makes them feel good without putting themselves at risk. That's a very important piece. Simplicity, you know, and ease, you know, for producers, food producers like yourselves, there's that, you know, what products can you produce that's going to help somebody in a home kitchen? For me, you know, what is a stress-free food experience, entertainment experience, dining experience? You know, the last 4 months has been inherently and unequivocally the most stressful time for many, many people. So what can you do that makes people's lives easier? You know, and affordability, you know, this is not just financial affordability for me. I think affordability in the greater context is, you know, what can people afford the time, the energy, and the effort that it takes to have the experience? So it's not just about the money, you know, is it going to feel like it's work? Is it going to take too long? Is it going to make them feel uncomfortable after because they don't know there was somebody in there that didn't even look like them have on a mask? And, you know, this is something that we in the Caribbean are struggling with because the reality of how the virus has impacted us here is a little bit different. We have a lot more open air spaces. So we don't really see the impact that a lot of other places have. The second issue that I would look at is sustainability. Are your systems, now again, you know, relevance, are your systems relevant for the concept of sustainability? We all understand the concept of environmental sustainability, and that's very important. But how sustainable is your business model? You know, are you, you know, I think Cristina referenced this before, are you a restaurant that brings everything in from overseas? And if so, how do you restructure to focus on more locally produced food? Do you know your supply chain? Are you in contact with and have community relationship with suppliers and providers that are close to you? Because local is also very important. Local leads to seasonal and fresh. Ultimately, that results in a better quality product. However, it requires that you change how you produce because you don't always have the consistency of supply. You may not always have that exact ingredient. You may get, you know, you may get 10 pound of fish this week, so you put it on, but you may not get that same fish next week. So you have to then assess and evaluate your product and your menu and how you produce that menu and change the narrative for your customer. The more you invest in building those relationships with the people in your community is the more that you're actually going to be able to support smaller enterprises and support the people that can ultimately help you to thrive, because once they have consistency, you know, then you know, it all sort of builds in on itself, and they can evolve their product when they work in collaboration with someone who is helping them to evolve that product. You know, there are many industries when I speak about sustainability that are intertwined with the food chain and the hospitality industry. And are you supporting those too? You know, local artisans, creatives, designers, you know, producers of all kind. I think that you know, we have a very rich legacy of creativity and artisanal production in the Caribbean, and I think that to not take advantage of that, and I'll show you a bit of that later, is something that, you know, we neglect a lot, you know, because we think everything imported is better. The next piece for me is legacy and history and heritage. My sister and I have always built businesses around the concept of heritage. And in fact, what we do in our restaurant, we call heritage dining. And it's also, you know, when you look at the legacy of an industry or a business or a product, you know, what parts of the story do you want to keep and what parts of the story do you want to discard and what parts do you want to focus on? The global legacy of farming in the Caribbean is built on, and also in hospitality, is actually built on systemic inequalities, you know, colonialism and you know, large scale farming and all of these things. You know, there's all sorts of socio-political issues here. And we don't need to delve into that, but I think that it's important to recognize that one of the most important growing food trends globally today in the food industry and in the restaurants is this focus on heritage and honoring foods of the past, honoring ancestral lineage in ingredients, in cooking techniques. You have restaurants that are looking up heritage grains, strains of rice that are no longer being produced, and grain, and sort of helping to refarm that. You have a lot of live fire cooking. You know, you have Francis Malman, you know, out of Argentina, as this entire, you know, industry built on this sort of concept of cooking over live fire. And you know, what that comes down to is that it's about returning to simpler ways of eating, to a more authentic place where food is just real food. You know, ingredients are ingredients. And in order for a product in the world of today to be relevant and stand out in a global context, with all the competition that's out there, it needs to have its roots in something bigger. And I think there needs to be story. The consumer of today is looking at a shelf of 500 products. You know, what is it that's going to stand out to them? What is it that's going to make that they can sink their teeth into? That's going to give them something that makes them maybe feel a little bit better about themselves. Maybe makes them feel like they're in the know. Oh, you know, I got this bespoke product out of the hills of Africa that, you know, I'm going to serve this weekend. Like, it makes people feel special to have special things. The consumer today is very interested in understanding provenance of their food. And I think that the story behind the legacy of the food and who produced it, culinary heritage and legacy is very powerful, and it's there's something to be said for the fact that, you know, if someone has been doing something for so long, then they must know what they're doing. And so looking at the legacy products that you know, of the region, I mean, a few examples would be Pica Pepper or Angostura Bitters. You know, there's a real value added to that. I think that there is something that, you know, when a legacy has a secret formula that's been handed down over years, people feel somehow that they can trust this product a bit more. And that's essential for decision making now. You know, I think trust. Product innovation and product development, again, from a lens of relevance, you know, it needs to be, in my opinion, innovation that's built around legacies of the past. You know, legacy is important. It's not that you want to produce something the way you did in the 1800s, but it's really about how we take that impetus and improve on it. And how do we, you know, asking ourselves the question, you know, what is the brand story and the context of the, you know, how we innovate. So how do we improve on what's already good? Do we make it better? Do we keep it authentic? You know, how do we evolve the products that we're doing? How do we add value to the products that we're making? You know, is it that we take it to another level with modernization and innovation, or is it that we refine what we have already existing? You know, how do we use the traditions and systems that work so we don't lose an integrity of product? And so for me, this is really about evolving the industry and innovating, but in the right way. So I think that it is, you know, a consumer really wants to know that they're one step from the earth or the farm. The systems and technologies exist that can make it easier for you to produce products that people feel connected to. And I think, you know, we really need to spend our time and energy innovating there. And the final piece, I think, that brings it all together really is accountability and integrity. And you know, what are the methodologies that you're using to produce your food? You know, the security of the food is a huge issue. Traceability, transparency, not just in the systems and technologies that you use to produce, but also in the workforce, in your community of suppliers and customers, allowing people to know what you do, how you do it, and ask questions of you, gives them a space where they feel confident that, you know, they can trust that you are doing what is for the best of all. If you were to ask me what the future of the hospitality industry looks like, I would say that we need a new model, a model that's built on trust and inclusivity. The future of the industry, you know, lies in an industry that is not linear, it's multifaceted. And you know, you have craftspeople, as I said, you have designers, you have creatives, you have marketing people, you know, you have gas companies, drivers, you know, you have all sorts of people that participate. And this is really a lifestyle industry. And for us to have transparency in this industry, you know, we have to reveal, we have to share, and we have to help the communities build trust for us and for the products that we are producing. We don't spend enough time on the issue of food security in the Caribbean. I think that it's an essential part of building trust, especially in a post-COVID era. We have to be extra vigilant about how we produce the food that we do. And we have to take the time to really talk about that process, train people in that process, and show that, you know, what is possible in that area. And we have to ask ourselves if what we're doing is really for the good of all. You know, is it necessary? Is it what people want? Does it somehow improve the quality of their experience? And can you do it without harming anyone else or harming the environment? You know, people have lost, in my opinion, patience for the flighty and the false in this time. I think it has brought a focus on people, the values, the experiences that mean the most and are the most important to us. And I think people really are going to want, moving forward, authentic expressions of culture and food. I think they're going to want to have experiences that have meaning, that you know, they want to feel connected and cared for. They want to return to simpler things and simpler times, and, you know, have intimate moments with smaller groups of people. And if you're conscious of that narrative and of the needs of the consumer, I think you can find a space to thrive, because in any market there's always opportunity. And if we look deep enough, we can each find a space where, you know, we can make that opportunity our own. So that's pretty much it. I'm going to share a little bit of a, let me see if I am on it now. Just click share screen.
Yeah, you just go share screen at the bottom.
Right, it, hold on.
Just,
I think I'm in the wrong view.
We've come, just for the participants, I know we've come to the end of the session, but we're just going to watch a quick video that Michelle's going to share. It's just about a minute long, and then there'll be a quick poll before we finish.
Are you sharing? Yes, you see? Okay, so so we have here, so food is an experience to make memorable. And so I'm going to end with my sister's voice.
You know, many years working in TV and in media and in cookbook writing, and of course in recipe writing, catering and restaurants. I think the one thing that Michelle and I have learned over the years is that we are very good at creating memorable experiences. How it looks, how it feels, how it tastes, how it smells. What we have tried to do with the Summer House is bring together all our years of experience into one place that speaks to all of what is the best of Caribbean living. We would like our patrons and our guests and our clients to remember not only how wonderful the food is, but how beautiful the tables are, how lovely the decor, the style and the environment is, how gracious our staff and our servers are. Because really what I think we are trying to create is a memory, a feeling, something that takes you back to a time when service and standards were like you were welcoming a friend into a home.
Thank you so much, Michelle. That was amazing, really enlightening and really inspiring. Yeah, so thank you so much for sharing.
No problem.
Does anyone in the audience have any questions for Michelle? We don't have very much time. We've already come to the end of our session, but if there are any burning questions, please do share, although she covered everything pretty well. I don't see any questions. If there are no questions, in the meantime, we would like to do just one last poll. Thank you so much for your patience. This is more for us. You know, it's an opportunity for us to have you all here to get some feedback. So here it is on your screens. Sorry about the noise. So if you could vote, how have you been engaging with your hospitality and food industry over the last 3 months? So this is really about how you've been supporting the restaurant and food industry during COVID, because they've been really hard hit. So dining at restaurants, takeaway service, online delivery, following recipes sourced on the internet. Thanks so much for voting. I can see everyone's doing it really quickly. Obviously for the eating out part, yeah, I could see there's a low response on that because of the quarantine. Thank you so much. Just quickly share the results here. Yeah, so the internet is a big one. People really becoming self-sufficient. So I guess again, opportunity in crisis. People have become been experimenting more with cuisine and recipes. So that's a positive aspect again. Thank you so much, everyone, for attending this webinar. We're, as usual, blown away by the turnout, and also it's really encouraging to see that you know, people stay throughout the webinar. Even an hour and a half is a long time, and we know that you're all busy. I'd like to thank the European Union once again for funding this initiative, and CARIFORUM Secretariat and the OACPS. And of course our partners CARDI and JAMPRO, and all our presenters today, Cristina, Michelle, Diane, thank you so much.
Thank you.
I'll leave the screen on just a little bit. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Thanks, Cristina. Thanks, Sarah.
Thank you.
Bye, everyone.
Just before I go, just a heads up that we'll be sending to all of you who attended today a feedback form, just so that you can tell us how we can improve, because we have more webinars coming up. This is a series. So we know it's a pain to have to fill in a feedback form, but it will help us improve and cater better to what you want to know, and you know, what's useful for you. So just keep an eye out for that email. It will be coming soon. Thank you. Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.